To discuss all of this, let's bring in Jessie Jane Duff. She's a retired U.S. Marine Corps gunnery sergeant, and she is also on the advisory board, Women for Trump. Jessie Jane, great to see you as always. More troops sent to Saudi Arabia, as we're learning today, and it's happening just days after the Trump administration decided to remove U.S. troops from northern Syria. Now, many criticize the White House for these moves and even see them as somewhat contradictory. But on the ground, as we know, priorities are changing and the White House has to respond. How do you understand the priorities for the U.S. in the region now, and why is defending Saudi Arabia so high on the agenda?
Well, it's a twofold question. First of all, in Syria, we were never authorized to use any combatant capabilities while we were based there. So essentially for us to be in the line of fire from Turkey was not an option for our troops. We were never authorized by Congress. We were there only to go after ISIS and be in an advisory role to the Kurds and along with the Syrian Democratic Forces. Now, when it comes to Saudi Arabia, they've asked for our support. We are not sending troops on the ground per se. We are sending air support. We are bringing in squadrons, air defense missile systems, which I think is more than accommodating. Simply put, we've had drones come over those oil fields within Saudi Arabia, and for us to be able to shoot that down can be a preemptive capability, which can prevent a lot of chaos that goes on once oil prices go up for all of our European allies. So when we're bringing in air support or air defense missile systems, I think that's a very practical resource, and it's also setting a standard where I've been asked many times on this show, why hasn't the president reacted? Well, he is, and he's putting in capabilities for Saudi to defend itself. This is, again, not infantrymen that are on the ground going into ground combat fighting.
All right, so do you think that this is strictly a matter of deterrence, or do you think that part of this was because there could be a more specific threat? And do you expect Iran to respond in any way to the increased U.S. military presence?
Well, Iran doesn't have anything to respond to. Us bringing in air defense systems and fighter squadrons essentially is just telling them that we're not going to allow their strikes upon our allies to occur without a response. We've been unable to respond prior to this. We're going back into an air base that has been vacated since 2003. So we really have the capability of being able to assist Saudi Arabia in defending those oil fields. It creates so much tension and international chaos when we are seeing this type of security get violated by the Iranians. So I don't expect a retaliatory move by Iran, because we're not taking any action against Iran that is causing them any harm or disruption. This is purely based upon a preemptive measure. Peace through strength.
Jessie Jane, the White House has faced a lot of backlash these past few days, and we talked about it, for allegedly betraying the Kurds in northern Syria. And some lawmakers wonder today, how come we're helping Saudi Arabia? We're helping Turkey, who are allies to a certain degree, but we can't really call them friends, and for sure they don't represent American values. So let's try to put it in perspective, the alliances that the U.S. has in the Middle East. To what extent is the United States really committed to its Middle East partners, and why is the U.S. more committed to Saudi Arabia today than it appears to be committed to the Kurds, for example?
Well, Saudi Arabia is a sovereign nation, as we know. Second of all, it really offends me to hear people say that we have abandoned or betrayed the Kurds. We went into Iraq, and many of us died for the Iraqi Kurds because of the chemical warfare that came upon them. To suggest that U.S. personnel or the United States is abandoned, we have monuments all over this city commemorating those who have died on foreign shores. Now, the Kurds, in the situation that they're in, we were there to assist them defeat ISIS. We could not perform a defensive measure with Kurds. What would we be defending? Attacking Turkish people? Attacking Syrians? We were never authorized, again, by Congress to be there in a combatant role. We were only there by the direction of President Obama when we were sent in an advisory role to assist in defeating ISIS. We cannot justify leaving those 50 troops on the border to be attacked by Turkey when we know that Turkey was coming in. This is a very sticky situation. It's not that we're not grateful to the Kurdish support, but our role and their role together was against ISIS. Now, if our troops are put in a position to now defend the Kurds, what are we defending them against? attack, so then we have to retaliate and fire back. If we start firing upon Turkish forces or start fighting in that area, we have no authorization by Congress to do that, and that should be offending more American people. The Kurds did receive our support. We are still there. We are now embedded in Syria. There's about 1,000 of our U.S. forces that are still with the Syrian Democratic Forces. Our sole purpose is there to defeat ISIS. We also have troops in Iraq that can do a rapid response to defeat ISIS. Make no mistake, our mission was never to go in to defend Kurds. That's called mission creep. When the mission changes, and now U.S. forces who are supposed to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, are no longer there now for a national security measure, which we were there for to fight ISIS.
Gunny, very quickly, what do you make of this tanker incident that happened in the Red Sea today? Who do you think is responsible for that?
Well, you know, I've said on this show so many times on this network that I think all bad things that happen go right back to Iran. You know, Iran has never been in a situation where I can trust them, because we've always seen behind the curtain they've played with their proxies, or they have attacked our allies through and then claimed innocence. So once the situation with the tanker is revealed, I would not be surprised if Iran is behind it. They have the motive, the means, and the desire to go after anything that can impede success with the sanctions that are going with the United States against Iran now.
Jessie Jane Duff, thank you for joining us.